forming an LLC should come before you get that insurance. Because in some sense, an LLC is the ultimate insurance. It's blocking your personal assets from being on the line in most cases if you have a problem in your business. So you've got to do that. That is a basic step you really need to take if you're serious about your business.
Welcome to the Online Genius Podcast, where host and renegade thinking beer brewing lawyer turned online entrepreneur Bobby Klinck proves that building and protecting your online genius doesn't have to be rocket science. Bobby and his expert guests break down online marketing and the legal stuff so you can stop sweating the small stuff and get back to building your amazing business. Now, here's your host, Bobby Klinck.
Hey there. Welcome to episode 60 of the Online Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klinck, and I am really excited for today's show. Now, I also want to take the time to again welcome you to 2019. I can't believe that 2018 is over. It was a wild year for me. It was really kind of the first year of this podcast, although I guess I had something like 6 or 7 episodes in December of 2017. But so it was an exciting time for me. And so I liked celebrating 2018, but I also have big things in store for 2019. And I hope you do too. And I hope you enjoyed the series I just finished on kind of planning your business for 2019, putting together your content plan, your promotion plan, all of those different things. I walked through what I'm doing, what my plans are for my business, what I have in store, etc. And I hope you followed along and created your own plan so that you have some clarity on what you want. Now, today we're going to be talking about one last thing that you should be thinking about in coming up with your plan for 2019 and really for the rest of your business's life. And that's, how do you get legal peace of mind? How do you know that you're protected so you can spend 100% of your energy on building your business and not have to worry about the legal stuff? So, this is going to be an episode where I'm going to talk about the legal stuff, but don't worry, I'm not going to get into minutia that might be boring. I'm going to kind of give you an overview on how you can get protection for your business and feel confident in it. And that's the big thing. It's not just that you have protection, but you should feel protected and feel safe. And that way you'll really be in a good place. And look, I'm a guy who really loves a good process, and I love step-by-step instructions. They kind of make my heart flutter. So I'm going to give you a simple 3-step process to get legal peace of mind. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, that's crazy. There's no way you can do it in 3 steps. Look, obviously there's, going to be kind of different things you're going to do in each one of the steps, but really it is that simple. It's as simple as 1, 2, 3 to getting your legal protection and your legal peace of mind. And now this is about the time in an episode like this where I would normally tell you that this show is brought to you by the community. But this week, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that because I've got a few different resources that I'm going to tell you about in this week's episode, all of them free. And so in a sense, all of them are your sponsors for this show. So I'm going to talk about them during the actual content rather than having this kind of intro brought to you by message that I normally do. So with that, let's dive in. Let's dive into this 3-step process for getting you legal peace of mind. Step 1 is to get some legal basic training. Now, growing up, I grew up in the 1980s, and one of my favorite shows on TV was a G.I. Joe. It was a cartoon, and at the end, they had a public service announcement kind of at the end of each episode. I guess they thought that it was cool to show kids a show about war and about things like that, so long as you gave them a lesson at the end. And I don't remember anything about that show, really. I don't remember any of the PSAs, but I do remember the tagline for those PSAs. It was, "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle." Now, I am a huge believer in that concept. The concept that knowledge is empowering, and that the first part of anything in life is getting some knowledge about it. And it applies to the legal stuff as much, if not more, than to other areas of your business. In a lot of ways, it applies more than, for example, Facebook ads, because you could always just, outsource that. You could always say, hey, I don't want to deal with that. I'm going to pay someone to deal with it. And you could do that with a lot of parts of your business. But I've got I hope you don't kill the messenger here. And I'd be tempted to use hashtag sorry, not sorry. But here's the reality. As an entrepreneur, the legal stuff is going to come up regularly during your life. There's no way to avoid it. And really, there's no way to outsource it 100%, because the fact is that even if you had a bunch of resources and you were like going to hire me or some other lawyer to be your lawyer, and, I'm talking hire us to be on retainer, the fact is that we are not going to be there sitting there looking over your shoulder to be able to help you answer all the legal questions that you're going to face as they come up in your business. So what that means is that you are going to have to take personal responsibility. You're going to have to take ownership of this issue. You're going to have to decide that you are going to be the master of your legal domain. And that means getting yourself some knowledge about the legal stuff that you're going to face. Now, again, remember, I said at the beginning of this point that you need some legal basic training. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to know all the answers, that you need to become a legal, guru, that you need to immerse yourself in this. No, you need to be to the point that you can become what we lawyers call an issue spotter. The concept behind that is not that you necessarily know the answer to a question, but that you're able to spot that it's an issue that you need to address. And this is a concept that lawyers know all about, because our exams in law school are what are called issue spotter exams. And so, basically in law school, we spend almost all of our money to get to the point that we can spot the issues. Now, the teachers, the professors cared a little bit about which way we came out on an issue, but ultimately what they cared most about is that we could say, aha, here's an issue, and then we would analyze it. And the reason why is because there is so much to the law that you can't know all the answers. I mean, I don't know all the answers to everything off the top of my head. That's just not possible. So what you need, you, just like me as a lawyer, what you have to get to the point is that you can say, when you face something in your business, you say, this seems like there might be a legal component. I need to figure this out. I need to think about this. Now, some issues you need to just know off the top of your head, hey, that's allowed, that's not allowed, things like that. But other things you just need to kind of have a good enough sense that, hey, this might, be an issue I need to talk to someone about. So at that point, you can go to a resource, find some information, whether it's talk to a lawyer directly or go to some other resource where you can get information about that topic. So that's kind of the amount of knowledge that I'm talking about that you need to have. You need to have this kind of working knowledge of these are the kinds of issues that are out there and be able to spot them. And so that's kind of the first step. So now you're saying, okay, that's great. How do I get that legal basic training? Well, that's, again, one of the free resources I wanted to tell you about in this episode is my Online Genius Academy. It is kind of my signature freebie, if you will. It's not something that I tend to send people straight to because it's got a lot in there. What it is I took what used to be paid trainings and I said, forget that. People shouldn't have to pay to get this legal basic training. And so I converted it into a free online training portal. There's, 30 plus videos that walk you through the legal stuff that applies to online businesses. Everything from kind of setting up and structuring your business in the first place. I mean, we're talking things like, should you form an LLC, a partnership, a sole proprietor, that kind of stuff, the very beginning, to how to then run your business once it's set up. And things like written agreements and the thorny issues about your website and keeping your website legal. And then the areas of law that affect you the most, which are what's called intellectual property. So that's kind of a broad umbrella that we lawyers use to refer to pretty much anything that you can own, that you can't hold in your hand and isn't a piece of dirt. So it's things like your branding, which is covered by trademark law, things like your content that's covered by copyright law, things like your confidential information, which is covered by trade secret law, and then an area of law known as the right to publicity, which protects each person's right to decide how their name, their picture, their likeness, all of those kinds of things are used commercially. So these are the issues that I hear questions about all day, every day from entrepreneurs. And so they're things that you as an entrepreneur need to understand. So I created the Academy as a resource to help online entrepreneurs like you understand those issues and get this legal basic training. And again, I decided all that stuff should be free. I don't charge a lick for any of my training, any of my educational material. That's all free. I just want you to get that education and learn it. So if you're interested, if this is something you'd like to do, I'd love for you to join me inside the Academy. You can do so by going to youronlinegenius.com/academy. Again, youronlinegenius.com/academy. When you get in there, you will find all kinds of lessons. You'll find all kinds of great information, and you'll get to the point that you understand the legal stuff so that when you're operating your business, when you are out there doing something, you'll say, maybe I ought to think about this because it maybe has something to do with copyright law, and I ought to check and think through whether I can use this information that I got from someone else. So it'll give you that kind of working knowledge, which is what you should be after. So that's step one. Get your basic legal basic training. You can do it from the Academy. If you don't want to do that, do it somewhere else, but just get a working knowledge of these legal issues. Now, the next step 2, is that you have to actually take action to protect yourself. All the knowledge in the world isn't going to protect you if you don't do something with it. Now, that's kind of the other thing I love about G.I. Joe's PSA slogan, which is, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. It's only half the battle, right? I mean, it's not going to do anything for you. You have to actually take action. You can't be a course junkie or a dabbler when it comes to the legal stuff, because learning all this stuff is great. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that you have to do, certain actions you have to take if you want to actually have your business be protected. And in reality, for most online entrepreneurs, there are going to be 3 central kinds of actions, categories of actions you need to take to get your business protected. The first one is to actually form a corporation. Here in the United States, you're almost always going to want to form what's called an LLC, a limited liability company, but you are going to want to actually take that step. And I know I hear a lot of pushback on this, and people say, why? I'm a sole proprietor. Why can't I just do that? Now, if you do nothing, you're what's called a sole proprietor. Okay. You're just doing business, and your name, there's no protection, etc. Forming a company of any kind, so whether it's just a normal corporation or an LLC, is going to give you protection. Your assets will be protected because they're behind a shield, because it's not you who's on the hook for most things. It's your company. It's your business. And it gives you that level of protection. So, for example, if you have a contract with someone, it's your company that signs the contract, not you. And so that means that if your company goes belly up, great, they can come after the company, but there's nothing there. They can't get anything out of the company if there's nothing else. They can't come after your car. They can't come after your house. They can't come after your personal assets. So it gives you that kind of protection. And again, it's a basic step. If you are serious about your business, if your business is going to be something more than a hobby or a small-time side hustle, you really need to form an LLC. Now, the other part about it is that it's very simple to do. I won't even do it for people because I say I'm way too expensive. You should, you can, most states, do it yourself. Go through the state's website. We'll have all the information to file to get all the protection you need, et cetera. So you can do it yourself. There's no reason to have to pay someone. And most states, it's going to cost you somewhere between $50 and a couple $100 to actually form your corporation. Now, I'll be honest with you, there are some outliers. If you're in California, for example, it gets expensive. I think it's something like $800 there. New York, I know, for example, has this rule about publication. So you have to publish something in a newspaper somewhere about you forming your corporation. So you'll need to get those details, but ultimately it is a step worth taking. And it's funny, I'm in these online groups all the time, and I see people asking questions about getting insurance. Like they want to buy insurance for their business. And what I'm going to tell you is, hey, I'm not going to tell you that buying insurance is a mistake, but what I'll tell you is forming an LLC should come before you get that insurance. Because in some sense, an LLC is the ultimate insurance. It's blocking your personal assets from being on the line in most cases if you have a problem in your business. So you've got to do that. That is a basic step you really need to take if you're serious about your business. So again, I had a prior episode about this, about, creating your company, creating an LLC, structuring your business. Ironically, it is actually one of the most popular podcasts I've had. So I'm not going to continue to kind of go through this. I'll have a link to that episode in the show notes where I talked about, structuring your business. You can go and you can find that. I think it was episode number 34. So episode 34 of the podcast was all about structuring your business. I talk all about this issue and go into more depth there. But that's one action you just have to take. Create your own business or your own company to protect yourself. Now, then the kind of second action you have to take within step 2 is to register a trademark for your business name and or signature product name. Now, this has to do with branding. And again, I'm not going to go all the way in depth about it because I've done it before. In episode number 35, I talked about naming your business. So that's, you can go back there and listen to kind of a full episode where I do nothing but talk about that issue. But what I'll tell you briefly is that you get some protection automatically when you start using your name. You get some trademark protection, is what it's called, but it's limited. If you take the step of filing an application to register your trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, you're going to get more protection once you get your trademark through. It also has some other benefits. It's going to make sure you take the step of making sure that no one else is already using the name, and so you can legally use it, et cetera. So there are those benefits too, but it's also just going to mean that if there's ever a dispute down the line, you're going to be in much stronger shape. Now, this is another one that part of the reason why I think this is an essential step is because it's cheap and easy to do. Again, I don't do this. If you came to me and said, hey, I want you to file a trademark application for it, I'm going to say, no, I'm too expensive, because it is something that is not that expensive to do. There's a company I use called legally.co. Again, legally, legally.co, C-O. I use them to file my trademarks, and that's where I send all of my clients who ask me. I say, go to legally.co. I think they charge something like $165 plus the government fees, which are $200 and something. So all in, it's about $400 to register a trademark in your name. Now, that is a very reasonable investment in the grand scheme of things if you have a business that you intend to last for the long haul. So for your business name, for your primary name, for your brand, for your business, etc., to me, it's a no-brainer. It's also a no-brainer if you have a signature course or a signature offer or something like that that has a different name from your business name. There's value in filing a registered trademark there so no one else can do it. Now, again, I wouldn't suggest spending that money for a starter course necessarily, or for, a freebie course, or for, if you have names for free lead magnets, etc., that I would not register a trademark for. Personally, that's the business guy inside of me saying it's just not worth the time. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the effort there. But for something like your brand name or your signature product name, it often is going to be worth it to do it. Now, to be clear, if you're just using your personal name as your brand name, you're most likely not going to be able to trademark it because your name has to have gained some level of notoriety or something beyond something beyond simply being a name, because they don't want, if let's use a simple example. If there are multiple John Smiths in the world, they don't think that one John Smith should be able to prevent another John Smith from using his name in business. So generally, you're not going to be able to trademark your own personal name. What we're talking about here are, if you have, a brand name. Now, again, you can go back to, my prior episode, to episode number 35. I talk about this more. Also, I have a discussion about this issue in the Academy. So if you join the Academy, you'll learn more about it there with slides, et cetera. So you get some of that. But at the end of the day, I highly recommend considering a trademark for your name, registering a trademark, and I would use a service like legally.co to do the work for you. Now, the final action step here in step 2, so the final kind of take action to protect yourself, is that you need to get all of your important agreements in writing. Now, written agreements are the most powerful tool in your arsenal to protect your business. You'll hear me say this over and over and over and over again. And part of it is that there are so many things that we can't control. Like, I can't control whether someone might, use my brand name without my protection. I can't control whether someone might steal, my content. Now, I can take steps if they do, but I can't actually control that. And I can't control so many of the things that are going to happen to me from a legal perspective on a day-to-day basis. But one thing I can control is whether I have written agreements in place with my business partners. And by partners here, I don't mean just partners. I mean, my vendors, my virtual assistant, my designers, all of those people. And the reason why, there's a lot of benefits to having agreements in writing. The first and most fundamental one is that they will help you avoid disputes in the first place. Now, part of this is that it forces you to actually make sure that you're on the same page with the person that you're doing business with. Now, let me use my VA as an example, because at the time I'm recording this, I've literally just hired a VA, just signed a contract, etc. Now, there wasn't a ton of back and forth on the contract, but one of the things that I stress to people when you're doing these contracts is if you have a package deal kind of thing, like, hey, I'm going to pay you X dollars to do this work. Well, you need to set out what the work is with some specificity, right? And so the point is that in the process of me creating this agreement for my VA, we had to be very clear about what was it that she was going to be doing for me on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. And by doing that, we got very clear. And the actual process is going to help with the business side right now, because she knows what I want. I know what the expectations are. We know what our plans are, et cetera, and it'll work out. So that's a big part of it, is it just forces you to actually get on the same page and talk through the issues when you're first coming to an agreement. But another part of the benefit here is that written agreements or contracts are much more reliable than human memories. What I'll tell you is I have seen in my career as a lawyer many disputes that come up because people had kind of a handshake deal and the parties have different recollections of what they agreed to. And I honestly believe from these circumstances that both sides were acting in complete good faith. Neither party was trying to, pull one over on the other side. They honestly believed what they said the agreement was. And I think they probably actually initially had an agreement. But the problem is memories fade. And the way our memories work is we tend to become more and more the hero of our own stories. We tend to become more and more right over time in our own memories. And so what will happen is if you have agreements that aren't in writing, and again, I'll use my VA as an example. If we just talked about it and didn't have a written agreement, here's what would happen. 6 months from now, my memory of what she agreed that she was going to do on a weekly, monthly, daily basis would grow. Her memory, meaning I would think there were more and more tasks that were on there. Her memory, on the other hand, would likely constrict and say that there were fewer and fewer things that she agreed to do. And it's not that either one of us is being wrong or doing that, intentionally. It's just how our brains work. Now, if you have the written agreement, on the other hand, though, there's no question. You can just go back and look at the agreement and you'll see what you agreed to. So that's kind of the big part. Is it going to help you avoid disputes in the first place? It's also going to help resolve disputes. So if a dispute comes up, what are you going to do? You're going to go back and look at the agreement and you're going to see what the agreement says. And, it'll also normally your agreements will provide for a way that you're going to go about resolving disputes. How are you going to do it, et cetera. And so it just makes it much easier. So those are kind of some of the central benefits. So again, what you need to be thinking through is that you need to get all of your important agreements for your business in writing and do it now. Don't wait. It's only going to get harder. Procrastinating on this is not your friend. So you definitely want to take action here. And if you're listening to this podcast the week it goes live, I'm actually going to be running a free training next week called Contracts Made Simple, how to create the contracts you need without paying thousands to a lawyer. It's going to kind of walk through all of these issues like, how do you figure out, what are kind of the essential contracts you need to be thinking about that you need? And some of them aren't going to be obvious to you. We're going to walk through what needs to go into contracts. We're going to do some of this where I'm going to decipher the really annoying legalese that you've probably seen in some of, the contracts against your sent your way and you have no idea what it means. I'm going to help you understand it. So you understand what that language is about, what it means, et cetera. So you can get all that information if you come and join me for that training. You can sign up by heading to youronlinegenius.com/webinar. Again, youronlinegenius.com/webinar. It's absolutely free. You're going to get lots of valuable information. So I hope you'll join me for Contracts Made Simple next week. But even if you don't, what you need to do is just figure out that you are going to go through the process of getting your agreements in writing. And what I'll tell you is I don't want you to say, I can't afford to get a lawyer to do this, so I'm just not going to deal with it. Anything is better than nothing here. Getting agreements written by you and your business partners, just in plain English is going to be better than having nothing. So just agree and, commit to yourself that you're going to take action here, that you're going to get those agreements in writing. That's the most important thing you can do. So that's kind of step 2. It's you need to take action to protect yourself. And there were 3 action steps within that step, or kind of 3 different actions that I suggest you need to take. 1, create a corporation for your business. 2, register a trademark for your brand name and then maybe your signature product. And 3, get your agreements in writing. Those are kind of the action steps you need to take to actually, get your protection in place. That then brings us kind of to the 3rd step of the process of getting legal peace of mind. And that is you need to find a community where you can get answers. Now, this is one that actually wasn't obvious to me at the beginning, which is maybe kind of weird. I thought when I first started doing this, hey, I help people, give them education and I give them template forms or whatever it is, or, I help them create the forms and then they'll be fine. The problem was what I realized after talking to entrepreneurs and came around to is that, this stuff is kind of scary. And entrepreneurs want to have a place to ask questions, to get information. And when I thought about it, it makes sense, right? Because in areas where I'm not as familiar, so in marketing areas, et cetera, it is hugely valuable to have a community where I can ask questions, where I can talk to people who are dealing with the same things as I am, and have a resource to bounce ideas off of. Basically have a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are kind of going through the same struggles as I am and dealing with the same issues to get my questions answered, but also just to have that community of people to support me. And so, I get it now. And I think when I think about it, in the legal stuff area, it's probably especially important because this is stuff that is in fact so foreign to most entrepreneurs. And so, having the ability to actually get questions answered, talk to people, et cetera, is especially important. So again, this is another one of those areas where I've got an absolutely free resource for you. I created the Online Genius community. And now this is the community that I talk about at the beginning and the end of nearly every podcast episode, because I think it's a very important resource for you. What we do in the community each week, we focus on the topic, kind of a theme from the podcast. And so sometimes it's very marketing focused, obviously. Other times it's focused more on legal stuff. But the concept is that it's focused on that. So we're not just talking about the law. So don't think that you're going to get in there and it's going to be just nothing but legal talk. No, it's a lot of marketing and building an online business, et cetera. But there is also obviously a legal component to it. And it's your chance, your place where you can ask me questions directly. Now, I'm there interacting with people, but also I go live for Q&A sessions and to address topics and to talk things through with people in the group. So that's kind of where the Online Genius community comes in. That's the role it fills. It is your place so that you have this peace of mind of knowing, hey, if I have a question, I can go get an answer. So I'd love for you to join me there. Again, it's absolutely free. It's a Facebook group. You go to youronlinegenius.com/community. Again, youronlinegenius.com/community, and it'll take you to the group. You can ask to join and you'll be in no time flat. So that's kind of what I believe, where you can find a community of like-minded entrepreneurs. Everybody's in there is obviously someone who's looking to make sure they're doing this the right way. They're building an online business in the right way and thinking about the legal stuff along the way as well. So that's it. That's my 3-step process for peace of mind. First, get a basic training. So get some legal knowledge so you can spot issues. And that's so that kind of an ongoing basis, you can avoid stepping on things. In other words, avoid stepping on landmines in a sense is kind of what that's about. The second piece is take action. Those 3 actions we talked about: registering your business, registering your trademark, and getting your agreements in writing. And then the final step is to find a community where you can get your questions answered and you can actually know that there are the people there to support you. So, I hope you'll join me in the academy, at the training, and in the community. My goal really is to get you the legal peace of mind you deserve, so that you don't have to think about the legal stuff. I want you to be at a point where you're just focused on your business. You'll have enough legal knowledge to spot issues if they come up, but you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be sitting there wondering all the time, is there a legal issue that might be coming back to haunt you? And so that's why I have these resources for you. So I hope you will join me. And that's it for this week's episode. And I'll see you back here next week for episode 61 of the Online Genius podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Online Genius podcast. Make sure to tune in next week for more great tips, tricks, and strategies to help you build and protect your online genius.